We thought we knew her, the genetically superior athlete, the ice-cold queen, the woman who walked, talked, and wrestled with the unshakable confidence of a dynasty literally woven into her DNA for over a decade. Charlotte Flair has been a titan of professional wrestling, a figure so polished and dominant that she often seemed more monument than mortal. Her reign was one of pristine robes, a cascade of championship gold, and a smirk that could cut glass. But what happens when the throne crumbles and the monument reveals its cracks? Netflix's groundbreaking docuseries, WWE Unreal, pulled back the velvet rope on Charlotte Flair's kingdom, not just to show us a champion's path back to glory, but to reveal the tear-streaked face of a woman terrified of losing it all, rewriting everything we thought we knew about WWE's most decorated female superstar. This wasn't just a story about a torn Aceli. It was the story of a public icon's private war, a meticulously documented descent into vulnerability that ultimately became her most powerful ascent. The world watched her win the 2025 Royal Rumble, a triumphant, storybook ending. But WWE Unreal showed us the harrowing chapters that came before the happy ending, the pain, the doubt, the divorce, and the disarming fear that asked the question she never dared voice publicly. After all this, will I ever be the queen again? The shattering of perfection, the fall. December 8, 2023, the night the narrative shattered. On a live episode of Friday Night SmackDown, during a seemingly routine match against Asuka, the unthinkable happened. It wasn't a dramatic high-impact spot from the top rope that did it, but an awkward landing, a cruel twist of fate on the ring apron. A collective gasp rippled through the arena as Charlotte clutched her knee, her face contorted not with the theatrical pain of a performer, but the raw, visceral agony of an athlete who knows something is terribly wrong. The queen had fallen. In the world of WWE superstars or modern-day gods, their injuries often woven into storylines or brushed over with vague announcements. But this was different. The silence that followed was heavy. The initial reports were grim, confirming a torn ACL-MCL and meniscus, a trifecta of devastation for any athlete. The prognosis was a daunting 9 to 12 months on the sideline, an eternity in the fast-moving world of sports entertainment. For Charlotte Flair, a pillar of the women's division since its revolution, this wasn't just a physical setback. It was an existential crisis. Unreal captures this moment with chilling clarity. The backstage footage shows a world away from the roaring crowd. We see the frantic concern of medical staff, the worried faces of fellow performers, and the stoic, yet visibly shaken, expression of her father, the legendary Ric Flair. But the most compelling footage is of Charlotte herself. The bravado melts away, replaced by a terrifying uncertainty. In a world where she was defined by her physical dominance and unwavering control, her body had betrayed her. The throne was empty, and for the first time in her career, Charlotte Flair was not in command of her own story. The carefully constructed aura of invincibility had been pierced, and the long, arduous journey back was just beginning. The silent war. Inside the crucible of recovery, the roar of the crowd is a familiar symphony for a queen, but in the silent, sterile world of a rehabilitation clinic, the only sound is the screaming of your own doubts. For Charlotte Flair, the crown had never felt heavier, not in the ring under the bright lights, but in the lonely darkness behind the curtain where the cameras of WWE Unreal captured the one battle she wasn't sure she could win. The docuseries dedicates a significant portion of its runtime to her rehabilitation, and it is here that the true heart of her story unfolds. This wasn't a glossy montage of triumphant gym sessions set to an upbeat rock anthem. It was a raw, unfiltered look at the brutal monotony of recovery. We see Charlotte, stripped of her sequins and championship belts, reduced to the agonizingly slow process of rebuilding. There are shots of her grimacing through painful stretches, her leg encased in a complex metal brace. We witness the frustration in her eyes as she struggles with exercises that were once effortless, her powerful limbs now seemingly alien to her. The physical toll is evident, but Unreal masterfully hones in on the psychological warfare. The series captures candid moments of profound self-doubt. In one scene, she sits on the edge of a therapy table, her voice quiet and trembling, admitting to the camera that she's scared. Scared she won't be as fast. Scared she won't be as explosive. Scared that the division will have moved on without her. The fear isn't just about the knee, she confesses. It's about them forgetting you. It's about you forgetting you. This section of the docuseries dismantles the genetically superior myth piece by piece. It shows her weeping after a particularly grueling session, not for the pain, but for the sheer frustration of her limitations. We see her watching SmackDown from her couch, a complex mix of longing and bitterness on her face as her peers and rivals thrive in her absence. It's a profoundly humanizing portrait. The Queen, the woman who famously declared she didn't have friends but followers, is shown as isolated and vulnerable, fighting a silent war not against a ring opponent, but against her own body and mind. This was her true hell in a cell, and the cameras were there for every agonizing minute. Life beyond the ropes, a crown in crisis as if a career-threatening injury wasn't enough. Charlotte's personal life was simultaneously in turmoil. While navigating the treacherous waters of her physical recovery, she was also weathering the private storm of her divorce from fellow wrestler, Andrade El Idolo. While a lesser documentary might have exploited this for salacious drama, WWE Unreal handles it with a delicate and empathetic touch. It's not presented as gossip, but as crucial context for her emotional state. The series doesn't delve into the specifics of the separation, but it shows the impact. It captures moments of quiet contemplation where the weight of her entire world seems to be on her shoulders. In one poignant clip, she speaks about the difficulty of having her personal life play out so publicly while already feeling at her lowest professionally. "You feel like you're failing everywhere," she admits, her voice thick with emotion. "Your body fails you. Your life, it's a lot. You're supposed to be the queen. You're supposed to be unbreakable." This convergence of personal and professional crises adds a profound layer to her journey. It explains the depth of the emotion we see leading up to her return. It wasn't just about getting back in the ring. It was about reclaiming a piece of herself, about finding stability in one area of her life when another was falling apart. The series shows her leaning on her family, particularly her father, whose own legendary career was marked by incredible highs and deep personal lows. Their conversations are a mix of tough love and deep understanding, a father reminding his daughter that the Flair legacy isn't about never falling, but about the style and grace with which you get back up. By showing this side of her life, Unreal transformed her from a two-dimensional character into a fully realized human being, fighting battles on multiple fronts and making her eventual comeback all the more resonant. The Embrace of a Kingdom, The Return, January 27, 2025. The Amway Center in Orlando, Florida. The night of the Royal Rumble. Backstage, the air is electric with nervous energy. A chaotic ballet of producers, camera operators, and superstars preparing for one of WWE's biggest shows of the year. But in a quiet corner, Unreal finds its emotional climax. Here, hidden from the 15,000 screaming fans, Charlotte Flair is falling apart. The footage is stunningly intimate. We see her, fully geared up in her magnificent robe, but her face is a mask of anxiety. Tears stream down her cheeks, smudging the impeccable makeup. She's breathing heavily, trying to center herself, but the emotion is overwhelming. This is not the confident queen ready for battle. This is a woman on the precipice of the biggest gamble of her career. After 30 months of hell, she is seconds away from stepping back into the light, with no guarantee of how her body will hold up or how the crowd will receive her. What happens next is perhaps the most powerful sequence in the entire docuseries. One by one, her peers, women she has battled in brutal on-screen rivalries, approach her. There are no storylines here, no kayfabe. Bayley, her longtime nemesis, pulls her into a tight hug, whispering words of encouragement. Becky Lynch, her greatest rival, gives her a knowing, respectful nod. Bianca Belair, a fellow standard-bearer of the division, embraces her warmly. The locker room, often portrayed as a shark tank of ambition, transforms into a circle of support. They see not the 14-time champion who has often stood in their way, but a colleague who has been through a traumatic ordeal and made it back. They are welcoming one of their own home. This genuine display of camaraderie and respect is a testament to her standing in the industry. It's a moment that transcends wins and losses. As she finally makes her way towards the gorilla position, the final staging area before her entrance, Triple H stops her, looks her in the eye, and gives her a simple, heartfelt welcome back. It's the final validation she needs. The tears are wiped away, replaced by a look of fierce determination. The Queen was back to reclaim her kingdom, fortified not just by her own resilience, but by the embrace of her subjects. The roar, the reign, the relief, the triumph, the countdown clock hits 0 for the 27th entrant in the Women's Royal Rumble match. The arena is plunged into darkness. A familiar, ethereal chime echoes through the speakers, followed by the iconic orchestral swell of her entrance music. For a split second, there is confused silence and then an eruption. The crowd explodes in a unified roar of shock and elation. On the giant screen, the words Charlotte Flair appear and the camera pans to the top of the entrance ramp. There she stands, bathed in spotlights, a vision in sparkling silver and blue. Her arms are outstretched, her head tilted back, absorbing the wave of sound. The unreal cameras are right there, capturing a micro-expression that the television audience might have missed. Beneath the triumphant pose is a look of overwhelming relief. This was the moment of truth, and the WWE Universe had welcomed her back with open arms. Her performance in the match is a masterclass in storytelling. She moves with a slight, almost imperceptible caution at first, testing her knee, rebuilding her confidence in real time. But as the match progresses, the old Charlotte emerges. The explosive power, the surgical precision, the unmatched ring IQ. She eliminates opponent after opponent, her movements growing more fluid and confident with each passing minute. The final moments of the match see her face-to-face with the formidable Jade Cargill. It's a clash of titans, the past and future of the division. The sequence is breathtaking, but in the end, it's Flair's veteran instinct that prevails. With a final desperate surge of strength, she hoists Cargill over the top rope and they both tumble onto the apron. In a heart-stopping finale, a well-placed kick sends Cargill to the floor. The bell rings. Charlotte Flair has done the impossible. She has returned from a career-altering injury to win the Royal Rumble. As her music blares and she points to the WrestleMania sign, the unreal cameras zoom in on her face. The tears are back, but these are not the tears of fear and anxiety from backstage. These are tears of catharsis, of vindication, of pure, unadulterated joy. It wasn't just a victory. It was a declaration. The Queen was back on her throne, deconstructing a legacy. Why unreal matters. The decision by both WWE and Charlotte Flair to showcase such raw vulnerability was a stroke of genius, both narratively and strategically. For years, a vocal segment of the fan base had criticized Flair, often labeling her with a Nepo baby tag, suggesting her success was a product of her lineage rather than her talent. She was seen as corporate, protected, and often unrelatable in her perfection. WWE, Unreal systematically deconstructed that image. By showing her at her absolute lowest, covered in sweat and tears, fighting for her career in an anonymous rehab facility, the series reframed her entire narrative. She was no longer just Ric Flair's daughter who had it easy. She was a fighter who had stared into the abyss and clawed her way back. The story shifted from one of privilege to one of sheer, undeniable perseverance. The impact on fan perception was immediate and profound. Online forums and social media, once filled with criticism, were now flooded with respect and admiration. Fans spoke of seeing her in a new light, of finally understanding the pressure she was under and appreciating the person behind the persona. The series gave her something that 14 world titles couldn't: empathy. It made her human. From a WWE standpoint, this was a masterstroke in character development. In an era where authenticity resonates more than ever with audiences, they allowed one of their biggest stars to be completely, authentically real. The documentary didn't just tell us she was a resilient champion. It showed us, in painstaking detail. This storytelling was more impactful than any scripted promo or prepackaged video vignette. It created an organic, emotional investment in her character that will pay dividends for years to come. It proved that sometimes the most compelling storyline is simply the truth. The Queen redefined a legacy in professional wrestling is typically measured in championships, 5-star matches, and WrestleMania moments. By that metric, Charlotte Flair's legacy was already secure long before her injury. But WWE, Unreal added a new, more vital dimension to it. Her legacy is no longer just about the polished robes and the confident woo-woo. It's now equally about the metal brace, the quiet tears, and the sheer grit it took to stand back up. The docuseries proved that true strength isn't the absence of weakness or fear, but the courage to face it head-on. The Queen's Gambit was not just winning the Royal Rumble. It was her willingness to show the world her struggle, to let the cameras capture her when she was anything but genetically superior. She gambled her pristine image on the power of authenticity, and in doing so, she won a far greater prize than a ticket to WrestleMania. She won a new and profound connection with the audience. Charlotte Flair returned to the WWE as the same dominant force in the ring, but as a completely redefined character in the hearts and minds of the fans. She taught us that the most unreal moments in life are often the most painfully real ones. And in embracing her own reality, she proved that the crown, while heavy, is worn not by those who never fall, but by those who, after being broken, rise again stronger, wiser, and more human than ever before.